All right, ladies and gentlemen, live from Annapolis, it's the Environment and Transportation Committee, starring none other than your friendly chairman, Kumar Barve. Also, I am joined by my equally friendly chairman, vice chairman, Dana Stein, and the wonderful people of the Environment and Transportation Committee. We are also, for the first bill today, joined by three members of the esteemed Economic Matters Committee, Ben Brooks, Lord Charkoudian, and Johnny Mox. So with that, let me just read the order of the bills. Yep, there we go. Okay, first bill is going to be Senate Bill 528. We'll be listening to Senator Paul Pinsky. After that is Senate Bill 176, departmental bill. Senate Bill 218, also a departmental bill. Senate Bill 80, Senator Eckhart. Senate Bill 465, Senator Carter. Senate Bill 520, Senator Washington. Senate Bill 625, Senator Hettleman. Senate Bill 731, Senator Watson. And finally, we'll round it out with Senate Bill 76, Senator Ellis. And let me, it's my great pleasure to introduce a friend of the committee, Paul Pinsky, who is the chairman of our counterpart committee in the Senate, the EHEA committee. And let me just say, before I give you the floor, Mr. Chairman, it's been a great pleasure to work with you. It's been a great pleasure for me and Dana Stein to work with you over these last, it seems like 6 or 7 months. And so, Senator, we have some great work product here, and I'm going to give the floor to you, Mr. Chairman, and please talk to us about the Climate Solutions Now Act of 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the kind words. If I could, I'm going to share a screen.
Yes, please.
Slides to walk us through this, if at all possible. Look, this is not the product of one person. It's, as you said, we've had discussion for 6 or 7 years. We've talked to experts, scientists, advocates, and in fact, some of the work had been done even previously. So let me walk through a few of these slides to give us a sense of where we are. Obviously, the slide is downtown Annapolis. You're very.
I'm not seeing any of the of your slides,
really?
Chairman. Damn technology.
Oh, yeah, pick it. Hold on. This one. Okay. How about now?
No. Strangely enough, I'm not seeing anything, Ian. Success.
All right.
Great. There we go.
Okay, thank you. I apologize.
No, not at all.
Okay, obviously this first picture is downtown Annapolis, which we know so well.
Oh, yeah.
This is Ellicott City, which we also know fairly well. Okay, this is Route 50 in 2020, which I still can't believe.
Yeah, I've forgotten about that.
It's shocking, obviously. Okay, this is something that's been pulled together, and it shows a trend line on the temperature increase. And the trend line, as you can see, is pretty significant from 1950, actually 1910 on up. It's not going to get any better. Obviously, you might have a year here, a year there, but the fact is we are getting warmer. It has implications for us.
Senator, can I interrupt you and go back to that last chart?
Absolutely.
So those plot points are 5-year averages. They're not the years. They're a cumulative 5-year average, right?
I believe that's right.
Okay, thank you. That's it. I just wanted to point that out.
look, the cost of flooding assumes that we make our targets is 26%. It goes up, you know, $500 million a year approximately. This is going to cost us. Forget about the ephemeral issue of climate change and this conceptual thing. It really has economic implications for our state and for all of us in terms of commerce and other aspects of our economy. I'm going to skip this one. Okay, let's get into the bill very briefly. I'm going to give a 20 or 25,000 foot overview, and I'll be happy to take questions if people want a little more nuanced detail. We set a target, a 60% reduction by 2030 and a net zero by 2045, which is similar to the bill that we crossed over last year. There's a very strong lens about environmental justice that we have to use that in anything we do. Many communities have been disproportionately affected, and so we have to understand that, acknowledge it, and respond to it. And this bill does that. First, it calls for the Environmental Justice Commission to come up with a methodology, and one of our own, Jacoby Wilson at College Park, has put together a software tool that looks at environmental justice to see what the disproportionate impacts are. And it also calls for setting investment goals to reinvest in those communities that have bore the burden of a lot of this. The bill also creates a climate justice corps to work on environmental justice and reduce greenhouse gas emissions through efficiency, through planting trees, a number of things, particularly in those communities that have been so affected, in our Black and brown communities, and not necessarily our urban environments, but it also could be in the Eastern Shore and Dorchester County. But it'll put 30 to 40, in most cases, young people to work for a year to get their hands dirty, to actually work in their communities to make the kind of improvement. So it's investing in our future as well. Buildings has been a big debate point. Let me go back here. And the bill has changed, whereas originally it called for a full electrification going forward. We ran into some heat from the utilities, and I think a lot of misinformation, to be honest with you, but the fact is my Senate colleagues felt it was probably a bridge too far this year. So in its stead, we called for a PSC study to look at moving towards electrification in new construction. Excuse me. But we do take action on large buildings and require them to what's called retrofit or reduce emissions by 2040. And we have interim target dates, and some will be renovating their buildings over the next 10 or 15 years anyway. And so we are encouraging them, when they do that renovation, to do it in a thoughtful way that reduces emissions. If they have to replace their furnace or HVAC system, the thought is, why not consider going to heat pumps or geothermal or some other form? Some can do it easily and actually recoup their extra investment, the marginal increase in cost, in probably 3, 5, 7, or 8 years. For some, it might cost more, and we set up an energy transition task force to recommend any kind of state assistance through tax credits or subsidies for those large buildings and owners who need additional assistance. Excuse me, I'm working off of a cold.
Take your time, Senator.
Transportation, this is very similar to what we had last year. All light duty passenger vehicles, light duty vans, et cetera, that the state utilizes, when they turn over and have hit their life cycle, simply replace them with EV vehicles if they're available. If they're not available, we're not saying you have to do it. We've expanded that. I know a lot of work has been done by Delegate Fraser Hidalgo. And with the Federal Infrastructure Act, there's a lot of money to transition our school buses to net zero. So the bill calls for school buses, if that federal money is available, to also, when they hit their life cycle, be replaced with energy efficient zero emissions vehicles. Schools, this has been an issue. Our committee visited 2 schools this summer, Halliburton Academy in East Baltimore, which is fully net neutral school. They report the marginal additional cost was $3 million. And that should be recouped fairly quickly in terms of reduced energy costs. We also visited Wild Lake Middle School in Howard County. That was similar, although they didn't start from ground zero because they had a blueprint or a template already. So it cost a little bit more, but they believe that if they would have started from scratch with design, they could have done it very cheaply. So we are calling on the state that each year for the next year, next number of years, at least 4 schools be built that are net neutral. And we set up a fund in the Senate of $12 million to pay for the marginal additional costs. And if there's not money available or the geography doesn't allot for that kind of situation, it allows exemptions for the schools and school systems. We also understand that this is going to change our society. Some jobs are going to be lost, some are going to be gained, and we've got to take a macro view to get the right people at the table: business, private sector, unions, local governments, to talk about what is this transition going to look like? What are the kind of jobs we're going to need? Is it going to cost? If a number of people lose their jobs and can't pay their mortgage or rent or pay for college, how do we take care of those people? How do we make this transition so it doesn't hit people in the underbelly? There's a climate jobs work group. We also call the state to lead by example in their own buildings to go at least 75% clean renewable energy, and that can be done by renovation or by purchasing clean energy. We set up a call for a green bank to leverage private funds. So if there's someone who wants to invest in technology that's going to push this forward, they need a bridge loan or an interest loan. There'll be a fund to do that. We're calling for $5 million and for it to be handled by the Maryland Clean Energy Center that's been around for a number of years and does very good work. We call for Empower, which I think is more of a ECM issue, to be shifted from 2.0 to 2.75 over a transition of a few years. And that's acknowledging that there's a work group through PSC and others to look at how we're going to transform the whole Empower policy. Just a couple more and I'll be done. Take questions.
Sure.
Community solar, we exempt from personal property tax. It's installed on rooftops, parking lots, roadways, or brownfields in low or moderate income households and customers. We set up a clean energy and transition hub. We want to have a center point where it can be a clearinghouse and have a couple of people who can say, look, if you need an architect for a school or for a new building, or you need to know where to go for other cities that have transitioned to retrofitting and reducing emissions, and to provide either directly provide technical assistance or direct you to that technical assistance, we want to begin and create an office to do just that. Methane has been a problem. The monitoring and the quantification of what a landfill reads and what is read from the airplanes that are much more sophisticated are very different. We first have to get a clear reading that the numbers coming out of our landfills and being recorded are accurate. They're not accurate at the moment. Secondly, MD is starting down a path of setting a cap for landfill emissions. We want to codify that and have that in our bill, because methane, as many of you know, is anywhere from 50 to 80 times worse than carbon dioxide. So I'm not going to spend time on this. There have been some studies. These come from the Climate Commission Building Subcommittee, and they all point to the fact that retrofitting buildings ends up being cheaper, even if you amortize all of the costs to do that. So to the, whether it's a multifamily residential unit, it's cheaper moving towards electric and not relying on what you do currently. Whether it's large commercial retrofit, the bar on the right, primarily electric with fuel backup. It doesn't say you can't use fuel, but that is significantly cheaper than the mixed fuel you see on your left. I think that's it. So let me stop with that. And again, I offered a 30,000 foot view.
Yeah, you know, Senator, I again want to compliment you for the very hard work you've done over the last 2 years, and the work that Ian has done as well as the members of your committee. This is, if there has been pushback in certain aspects on the Senate side, it's because you dared to do some big things. So I think it's better to shoot for the stars and end up on the moon than it is to shoot for the moon and end up limping along in low Earth orbit. So let us begin.
Mr. Chairman, let me just mention one other final point.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Some of these ideas came from the Climate Commission.
Mm-hmm.
And they voted last fall, I want to say November, on this report, which included not only electrification, new construction, but the retrofit of existing large buildings over 25,000 square feet. The vote was 22-2. And most of those votes came by secretaries in the Hogan administration.
Yeah, so, I mean, actually, didn't Exelon and the building industry representative vote in favor of it?
Well, Pepco, Vice President for Government Affairs, was on it. She's a co-chair. She voted in favor.
Okay.
Someone who does lobby for the builders did in fact vote for it. So it was overwhelming. It was overwhelming, and it's important to understand that the Secretary of Agriculture, the Secretary of the Environment, all these said Secretary of Transportation, they didn't do it on their own. My belief is they checked with the second floor, and the second floor said, if you believe it's the right thing to do, do it. And they got permission, they voted for this plan. Now, recently the administration has come out against it, called it an energy tax bill. The word tax is not mentioned anywhere in the whole bill. So I think those facts are important to understand. And I also want to say in my final comment, it's not perfect. We are open to suggestions. I've worked with your chairman, vice chairman, and others, and we want to make it the right bill, a good bill, a strong bill that we can be proud of. So when our children or grandchildren say, what did you do, mommy and daddy, or grandmom and granddad, we can say, we fought like hell because we saw it as important, and we tried to pass the best possible bill we could. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me go. And by the way, this bill hearing was announced as a sponsor-only hearing. So, and between my bill and Dana's bills and the chairman's bills, we've had like 20 hours worth of testimony, I think, collectively on this issue area. So let me go first to Delegate Ruth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Senator, thank you so much for all of your work on this. I know this has been an incredible journey, and thank you, Chair Barve and Vice Chair Stein. Also, I know that you have put an incredible amount of work into this as well. And, obviously very difficult to find the right solutions. So I just wanted to touch on the building electrification part of that. And I wondered, Senator, if you could talk a little bit. I know that there's the PSC study in there, but what you see the path forward in terms of electrification might be.
Look, I think we have the capability now. That's why I put it in the bill, and I know Chairman Barve and Stein also agreed with that the experts on the Climate Commission, and we're not talking of lightweights. We're talking about scientists, experts who studied this. They hired a group out of California who did econometrics on this and regressive analysis, and they did modeling on this. So I think it's there. I think we can do it. It's a matter of will. I think it's a matter of politics. People weren't ready for it, so we're having this study. I think that this study will affirm what we all believe, or many of us believe. I think when they come back with a study, we're going to be addressing the same political issues, not data or economic issues. And I think the people who opposed it are the utilities who sell gas. And I think it's a matter of they want it both ways. They want to sell electric and they want to sell gas. And I think we have to build for the 21st and 22nd century, not for the 19th century. So, you know, as I've said, and I don't want to get more political than normal, but I think, you know, there are some who are putting profits before people in the environment. So I think we're going to be facing these very same issues next year and the year after. And at some point, we're going to have to join New York City, 10 million people that have already taken this path. And I think we're going to see more states and more cities doing the same. So look, I'm ready to wait and we'll see this study. I trust the Public Service Commission. I think they're decent people. They'll bring in consultants to do it. I think they'll probably affirm what we already know.
So just to go a little bit further with that, and I appreciate that answer. Thank you. And you know, would you see any possibility for an interim step while this study is going on where we require buildings funded with state money to be moved towards electrification, where that would be less stress on the grid and might even provide us some data that could help with this moving forward?
Well, Delegate, on this issue, you had me at hello. So, you know, I'm on board, and I await any amendments from the House that move us in that direction. I don't know where the rest of our colleagues in the Senate are. I think we take some modest steps. Obviously, we're calling on new schools to be net neutral. And to do that, it's going to be based on electric, not on gas. This geothermal thing is terrific. I mean, it's amazing. And these heat pumps, you know, you should really get out to Halliburton Academy in East Baltimore. It's a sight to behold. And they use it as a teaching tool. Everywhere you go, there are things on the walls that explain what's happening, and kids can see it. And it's not just solar anymore. It's much more sophisticated. So if the state can lead by example, throughout the bill, we try to do that. That the state leads by example by their cars, by buses, by new state buildings, if we have any new state buildings. So I'm all for it, Delegate.
Thank you so much.
Next question goes to Delegate Weigel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator. I had a couple of questions. If you could help me out understand some of these issues. Do you have any statistics on the cost per square foot of net zero buildings versus, say, the traditional buildings, what the cost of construction per square foot?
I don't have that exact number, Delegate, but again, using the example, in building the new school in Baltimore, they said it was $3 million in marginal additional cost. And how many years it takes to get that back, I think I didn't get a specific item because they got to calculate their energy savings, but I think it's very short term. So, and I don't know if the building was $50 million or $100 million, but I think it's in small percentage. And so
they didn't estimate a payback prior to construction on that school.
They may have it. I don't want to speak for them. We can probably find that out.
All right. Next question. I know when we had Delegate Stein's bill before us, it came out that basically I think we were a 50% net importer on electricity, and that particular bill didn't necessarily address the source of energy. I know your bill says that it should be 75% clean energy. So does the bill do anything to provide for construction of clean energy in the state of Maryland, or does it rely on outside other states like West Virginia or wherever to produce power?
No, Delegate, it's a very fair question. And we don't differentiate between imported and created in Maryland. I mean, there are other bills that do it. Obviously, we passed a renewable portfolio standard to get up to 50%. And I can tell you this, there's another bill that we overrode the governor's veto that tried to get the 18 solar projects that have been waiting in line, that have been federally approved, that they haven't broken ground because some jurisdictions have been dragging their feet. So I think there are other related issues of us moving more aggressively on clean energy, whether it be solar, getting the wind expanded off of Ocean City. So I don't get into that specifically. I think the less we have to import, the better. And so I'm on board with that. In the short term, will we continue to have to import clean energy? Of course we will.
Okay, so it specifies 75%, but doesn't necessarily provide for a means for that, achieving that goal. Because I used to work for a power company, and their major source of production was it was fossil fuels. It was coal, and that's where Maryland used to get a lot of their energy. I don't know where PJM gets it now, but all right. You talk about landfills in the bill and the emissions. Does the bill provide for capturing the methane or using the methane gas that emits from landfills? Because I think in our county, we just burn it off, which seems kind of a waste.
Yeah, Delegate, again, it's an important question. Some landfills are being very creative and using new technology to capture it. And I'm all for that. But I don't get into detail of how we solve this. I just, want to get the measurements right so we're not deceiving ourselves as to how much methane we're putting in the air. I mean, if you look at some of these photos from the flyovers, you see these red plumes. And I remember looking at a chart with the red coming out above landfills, whether in Prince George's County, my own county, or in Baltimore County. And then you get the readings on the ground and they're just so far off. So first, we got to get a handle on how much we're emitting. And secondly, I'm leaving to, the Department of Environment to come up with what we think the appropriate limit is. Now, there are some amendments to the methane and landfill issue in the House, some that are in the Senate, some I wasn't very pleased with. But it doesn't resolve exactly how every jurisdiction should do it. We don't want to micromanage here. We want to have create a framework and some goals that we think are realistic and some actions that need to be taken. The state leading by example, cars, for example, or school buses. But we don't describe how to capture that. And if I can, Delegate, people have approached me, what about nuclear? What about battery capture? We don't get into that. Our approach was we need over time to electrify, meaning we should use electric lines to shift that energy, not gas pipes. So in other words, whether it's solar, whether it's wind, whether the legislature in the future decides nuclear is right, I have my own questions about that. It's a lot cheaper to have electric lines because you have to put light in your home. You don't have to build gas pipes if you're not going to use natural gas or oil. We move away from that. So a lot of these questions are open questions, Delegate.
All right. And being from Western Maryland, I'm always concerned about the, potential economic disadvantages if Maryland does something through regulations that the other adjoining states don't do. So kind of a two-part question. Do you know what our adjoining states are doing, like Virginia, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Delaware? And do we know what the cost of doing the economic impact is on businesses from this type of legislation?
Yeah, again, a fair question. The initiatives have to be a net positive. This can't be jeopardizing our economy. Look, we know in some areas, like on wind, Virginia's ahead of us. At the same token, to wait for every state to go means we're only going to go as quickly as the slowest state. And, this has created the question on the floor of the Senate, why should Maryland do this? Let's wait for 10 other states or 20 states or the federal government. The reality of the situation is it's been state efforts and state initiatives that have driven other states and driven the federal government. Obviously, California is a large state, but the Clean Car Act came out of California. So we think rather than the race to the bottom, it should be a race to the top. So look, I'm hoping West Virginia, Virginia, Pennsylvania, New Jersey come along. New Jersey's moving along on solar as well. West Virginia's a complicated story, as you know. They've been relying on coal for a lot of years. and hold on to that coal. And that's just not going to happen for cost and for economy and environmental reasons. So I think depending on the types of energy and the actions, it's going to be very uneven.
Okay. All right. I have other questions, but I know there are other folks waiting, so I thank you.
All right. The next question goes to Delegate Amprey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator, for joining us today and bringing this bill forward. It's desperately needed. I always cared about our climate since I was young, but once I became a father more recently, it became even more of an urgent thing that we need. And living in Baltimore, I'll tell one quick story. I was at the mechanic, and a woman came in and she was complimenting our car. That was my wife's car. And she said, I had one just like that. But a few months ago in East Baltimore, there was a flood, and her husband had to literally abandon her SUV in order to get home safely, and the car was ruined. So that's the reality of where we are with climate. And it's, pictures are one thing. When you have those personal stories, it's important to tell them. So I appreciate your hard work. And I just want to discuss, and first, thank you for having the equity lens that we need to have with this issue. And ensuring that equity is at the forefront of how we're addressing climate change and our climate in the future for Maryland. And I know that you mentioned that we're going to have an equity commission or piece to study and analyze and make sure that we remediate the issues that have harmed particular communities of color, communities that have been disenfranchised. So I wanted to get a better idea of what that looks like. And then if there's anything within that framework to also deal with possible inequities moving forward. Some of the concerns that I hear from my community are that as we move towards expanding a grid or installing certain things that we need in order to get to net zero, that we want to make sure that communities of color aren't harmed again by there being a fast movement towards the grid growing more so in their communities or in communities where they have less of a voice or less money. So I just wanted to get your thoughts and concerns on that. And thank you again for making sure that we have this equity piece as part of this bill.
Well, thank you, Delegate. There's an Environmental Justice Commission. The name is a little different. I'm not quoting it right. And I think Delegate Boyce is on that, and we've spoken about this. We don't want to usurp their initiative, but we wanted to not prod them, but in some ways prod the Department of the Environment. I can tell you the commission's been around, but it has been dormant for many years. There's been a commitment to re-energize it, but we want to give a number of charges that are very explicit. We want specific strategies for what we need to do to address the things in urban and areas that have been disproportionately affected. I mean, like asthma. I mean, there are public health issues, that kids are getting crushed on this stuff. So we want a systematic review. And I understand the delegates and senators on the commission, they're overburdened, but we have a large department with some resources. So we have a number of charges, setting appropriate goals for the percentage of state funding to reduce measures, look at environmental justice concerns, looking at co-pollutants, climate equity, resilience, a number of things on the commission. So we don't want to we don't want to be dismissive of the climate commission there. I'm not climate, the Environmental Justice Commission. So we've given charges to them in the Department of Environment to be more systematic. I don't want to say more serious, more systematic to get us some answers. Additionally, you talk about the lens in the bank. I think we direct 30 or 40% of the money that's used in this bank to low and moderate income areas. So the issue of environmental justice, we try to put in not just in one category. We try to, enfold it throughout the bill in many places. And one thing I've heard, Delegate, is you're going to put this pressure on communities, and it's going to be too expensive, and it's just unthinkable. I think the reverse is true. I mean, the more we can lower energy costs in working poor communities, it's going to help them. And in almost all of these initiatives, the payback is not that long, and then it becomes a savings to folks, whether it's insulation, whether it's programmable thermostats like through the power. There are a lot of things we can do that are going to make life easier, that there'll be more disposable income for a lot of these families who are pressed. So, I'm not sure if I've answered your question, but we have bits and pieces here. I haven't, and the final part is this Environmental Justice Corps. I mean, to hire young Black and brown and white people to work in our impoverished communities and get their hands dirty, whether it's planting trees or helping add insulation to people's homes so they have to buy less gas or oil, is going to help. And I think it's going to get people invested in their communities. And hopefully more people understand that, this issue of climate change is not a middle-class issue or a white issue. It's affecting all of us. And that we can integrate it in a lot of our work. So I think that's, again, it's small, hiring 30 or 40 people, it should be 300 or 400. We understand that, but we have limitations on our checkbook of what we could spend. But we think if we can build this and then replicate it in future years, it's really going to help our state.
Yeah, no, thank you. So that, just answer my question on the how the commission is going to deal with ensuring that there's equity in place. But just want to get a better, if you have any insight or thoughts on some of the concerns that people have as far as, again, the building out of what we want to do to get to net zero as soon as possible, and its possible impact on certain communities that may see a grid come faster to their community versus another community. And just wanted to get, is that part of the framework of the Equity Commission, making sure that there's to prevent future harms where these communities could be impacted?
Well, I believe it is part of their charge, and I don't want to speak for them. I don't serve on it. I know some of the folks on it. But the bill also calls for the Department of Environment to reissue a plan for getting to 60%. And I think we're trying to be, if we're not explicit, we're implicit, that plan has to use the same equity lens. It's not just, we're going to help poor people in this area. It's got to be integrated into everything we do, and hopefully the new plan from the Department of Environment will do just that.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right. Next question goes to a member of the Economic Matters Committee, Delegate Lord Sharkutian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thanks for having us in your committee. Senator Pinsky, thanks for the extraordinary amount of work that you've done on this bill. And while I'm thanking you, I also want to thank the Chairman Barve and Vice Chair Stein, because I know you all have been working together, and it's so crucial. It can't be said enough how important this is. And I know you've worked really hard to get to this point. So thank you all for that. I do have, I followed the conversations over the summer, the climate, the commission's building work group conversations. I participated in several of them. So I followed this question about electrification and the natural gas grid pretty closely. And I was disappointed, and I know you were too, to sort of move away from really setting, even if we had to push dates out, really setting that goal in a very strong way. But I wanted to talk to you about the study, and I guess my question is, let me just raise the concern, and then I'm interested in knowing what your thoughts are on this and where we might find other language for the study. My biggest concern is, and you referenced this, and this in some ways ties to Delegate Ampre's question. It's actually the gas grid that is sort of more expensive. And in fact, that's where the utilities earn the highest rate of return. So they actually earn a substantially higher rate of return on their gas investments than on their electric investments. And so especially a company like BG&E, when they're looking at how they maximize their return, the more they can keep gas in the ground, the more return they have. So even though they theoretically profit off electric as well, it's not to the same extent. And so that's a piece of why they want to hang on to the gas infrastructure for as long as possible. And related to that is this issue of equity. As we shift to electrification, the folks who can't afford that shift, if we don't do it in this very thoughtful, comprehensive way, will be the last ones left on that grid, and will be paying for those stranded assets. And so there's a real concern about not pushing electrification as a state, but letting it happen just kind of willy-nilly. So my concern about the study is twofold. One is it feels like it's heavily dependent on information provided by the utilities. And I think that there is, it asks the question in some ways, if it can be done, rather than stating that we believe it can be done, and asking the question of like what's necessary to, if it throughout the state, determine whether it's capable, which seems like a yes, no question rather than a we have to get here, how are we going to get here question. And then the second is gas and electric, the companies providing the information concerns me, because I think they have a vested interest in providing the information in a certain way. I want to mention that in Washington, D.C., a similar analysis of like what is the impact on the grid in terms of peak usage, of electrification that takes place over the next 10, 15 years, suggests that it's not a higher impact than other growth that we've already experienced in the.
Delegate, could you like focus it on a question?
That's my question. What are
Okay.
your thoughts on changing the language to address those concerns?
A couple of things, Delegate. And first of all, I think I'd probably say amen to most of what you said. The study, and they're going to bring an independent consultant, is clearly going to need to know the usage, the kilowatts used, and the utilities have that information. And I don't think they're going to lie, because PSC can check that. They're in front of them all the time. So I think we need some data from them, and some of it is public knowledge. And when they go for a rate setting, they have to submit it anyway. So I'm not worried they're going to falsify that data. And if they do it, we should send them to hell to jail. That's number one. If the House comes up with some amendments to the study language, look, I would welcome it. As I said to start off my comments, I think we know these answers. I think they've been given to us. The consultant, E3 from California, said we do have the capacity. So look, I'm not as worried about the Public Service Commission. It will be an independent study. They're not going to say, here, utilities, you do it. If that were the case, this would be a disaster from the word go. If we need some tighter language, I would surely welcome some amendments from ECM and ENT on that language. Look, this came in as a plan B after we didn't have the votes to move the full electrification, which was my choice. And I know it was the choice of Delegate Stein and Chairman Barve as well.
Very much so, yeah.
This was a plan B. If it can be clarified and strengthened, you should offer those. I think I'm not worried about it getting hijacked, but the clearer we are, the sharper we are with what we want and why we want it, I think it's fine. I think you're right. And in fact, I'm looking at my notes, and I have weather in parentheses and replaced by the word how. So I think we're on the same page on that issue.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Next question goes to Delegate Jen Terraza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Senator Pinsky, for all your work on this. It's just to say it's tremendous, I feel is an understatement. All your work with our chairman and our vice chairman and everybody else that's been involved. I also wanted to say I'm glad you had a chance to visit Wild Lake Middle School, because in Howard County, which we're very proud of as somebody from Howard County. And I agree with Delegates Ruth and Charkoudian, and obviously with you guys about the electrification issue. Delegate Charkoudian asked one of my questions. So the other question was about something I'm a little less familiar with, but something that advocates brought to me about the Empower, and something about there being, and I apologize because I know a lot less about this than Delegate Charkoudian and Delegate Ruth, but about there being a penalty for fuel switch from gas to electric. Is that something you're familiar with? And is that something that was removed from the bill or something that can be put in the bill? And I apologize for even asking that, since I'm clearly not the right spokesperson for that issue, but I am curious about that issue after it having been brought to me.
No, Delegate, it's very appropriate. Right now, if you use some of the money in the fund, you can do it to make your system more efficient. So in other words, if you have a furnace and there's a more recent addition that's more efficient, you can use the money for that purpose. However, one thing you can't do is use it for fuel switching to a heat pump. I think that's silly and ridiculous. and it's thinking of like 20 and 30 years ago and it needs to be changed. And the Public Service Commission and I think ECM and Finance are looking at that issue. So I encourage changes to empower.
Is that appropriate here? Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
No,
off, Senator.
No, and again, we approach this with an omnibus bill in the Senate. I know you started with 3 or 4 different bills, and I respect that. The empower, the fuel switching is purely the domain of the Finance Committee in the Senate. And I wanted to, on a political level, keep this as tight as possible and not have to go through 2 or 3 committees. Our bill also had to go through budget and tax. So I support that. And I think we have language to encourage that work group and those reforms in Empower to continue to take place. I didn't put it in this bill, but I welcome it. I think it is in one of your bills. And I think Senator Feldman did in fact try to address this issue in a freestanding bill, which whether I'm a co-sponsor or not, I support. So conceptually, I think it goes hand in hand. We just didn't put it in this bill.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Next, let's turn to Delegate Motz from the Economic Matters Committee.
Thank you, Chairman. Great to be with everybody. And Chairman, good to see you. Well, I got to find you on the screen.
I'm here someplace.
Oh, which chairman?
Chairman Pinsky, great to be with you.
We can hear you.
Thank you. I just wanted to verify the bill would allow certain jurisdictions, if they wanted to implement some of the provisions of the bill faster, specifically with regards to natural gas, they would be able to implement their own, they would be able to go above the standards in the bill. Is that in the bill?
It is, but it's only in one section, Delegate. On the retrofitting, reducing emissions, it would allow a jurisdiction to see this as a floor, not a ceiling. So in other words, I know at least one jurisdiction is already adopting this and we don't want to restrict them. So if they want to move faster, and again, these are buildings of 25,000 square feet or larger. This is not on your residential home unless you have a home of 25,000 square feet, which I'd be shocked given all of our economic situations. So it's only in that one aspect of the bill of if they want to move more rapidly or more aggressively, we don't want to restrict them from doing that.
Right. And so that's just for the fittings. That's
The retrofit for the
retrofit
emissions. In our bill, we call for 30% reduction by 2035 and a full reduction by 2040. And I think the House bill might be different. They might have a 20-30%. I'm not sure 2030 date. I'm not sure.
And so one of the questions to me was, well, Johnny, if the counties can do this, would they then be able to, if they wanted to implement a nuclear option for generation? But I don't know. I guess that's kind of outside of what's mentioned in the bill.
Yeah, I mean, the only nuclear I've heard about in the last 2 years was from the governor having a small, he was proposing small nuclear facilities. I call them neighborhood nukes that the governor has proposed, but that has not really gone anywhere. No, all energy is controlled by the Public Service Commission. No county can have the authority to create a nuclear power plant.
Right. But if the counties were to do this with the retrofits, that would have an impact on the grid, and we would still be doing that. There's a study on electrification, and so that would take place before the study was completed, or am I missing something?
Delegate, it's already happening, and we need to understand reducing emissions by 20 or 30 or 35% can happen multiple ways. Mm-hmm. You can become more energy efficient. You can change your windows. You can put in heat pumps. You can use solar. There are probably 15 technologies I can't even explain to you. So this is not requiring electrification automatically in the next 5 or 10 years. So I think the effect to the grid is minimal. And as Delegate Charkoudian shared, Washington, D.C. Has passed some legislation in the last couple of years. They had a study done, and PEPCO actually applauded the study and said it's not going to affect their capacity at all, because with energy efficiency, it's actually reducing some of the growth. And in a lot of places, we're talking about 0.5% a year. So I just don't think there's any truth to reality that is any of these actions are going to overburden the grid.
Would the bill mandate eventually, I guess, 2040, all electricity to come from non-fossil fuel source generation?
No, that is not in the bill.
That is not in the bill. Do you have any information on the, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you sneeze.
I have this cough. I've been
Yeah.
hanging on. I'm COVID negative, but I'm just sick.
I'm sorry. Then do you have any information on how the bill would actually, how would the impact of the bill, the requirements of the bill on the generation of electricity? Can you predict, do you have, with all the testimony and the studies that have been done, I would assume that the legislation is going to incentivize the consumption of renewable-based electricity as opposed to fossil fuel-based electricity?
Well, I mean, there are already recs in federal recs in place for wind, for solar. I mean, even for cars, electric vehicles. We do say that we set a special blue ribbon task force of the business community, of investors, of the private sector, public sector, to talk about what credits might be needed from the state if someone has to reduce 20, 30, 50, 60%, and they don't get a very quick or reasonable return on investment, what kind of state support there will be to incentivize that. We didn't want to put the cart before the horse. We have this goal. We think we have to reach it, because if not, it jeopardizes all of us. But we have a fairly quick blue ribbon group that will meet to talk about what those incentives should look like. I mean, for example, Delegate, I mean, what is a reasonable return? In other words, if a marginal cost to do X is $3 million, if I get that $3 million back in 5 years and then I start making money, should I get state support?
No.
Or is 6 years a reasonable return on that marginal cost? I don't have those answers. It's out of my wheelhouse. I want to get the right people around the table to do it.
Yeah, and they have not contacted me, and there's been issues in the past, but there are several rural municipally owned electrical companies, and they operate outside of sort of the Annapolis world, and they are not included in a lot of discussions, but they are vital to the communities that they serve. And I'm interested to know if the municipal electric companies were at all involved in any of the hearings or the debates that you've had on the Senate side on this legislation.
Delegate, we heard some of their concerns. We've put some language in the bill that in terms of whether it be a retrofit or going forward, unique situations. We talk about unique situations. Hospitals came to us, for example. You know, in terms of retrofitting, they need backup systems. We have done that. You know, historic buildings, some can't do certain things. We talked about agricultural buildings over 25,000 square feet, which are not a major contributor in a lot of this. Greenhouses, for example. So we've tried to take into consideration a lot of those unique needs in the bill.
And with regards to the retrofitting and going back to the county issue, the jurisdiction issue, how would that impact the Public Service Commission in rate setting?
Not at all. In other words, again, one county is already talking with all of their large office or multifamily owners and saying, look, you've got to reduce emissions. And we're telling you, you need to reduce it by this amount by this year. We are not going to tell you how to do it. So it's not a Public Service Commission issue.
Hmm.
I mean, I used the example of the Empire State Building. They renovated hundreds of millions of dollars. We're talking the Empire State Building. They redid their windows. They actually took their elevators and turned their elevators into energy producers. So when the elevator would go up and down, they use that energy in other parts of the building. So they did creative things that didn't affect the grid. And in fact, they reduced their they increased their energy efficiency by 40%. And the investors who put in the extra money got a payout, I think, after 5 or 5.5 years. So we're allowing creativity at the local level, but these don't rise to Public Service Commission.
Yeah.
This is not a rate setting issue.
I feel like I think I'm taking over the committee. I could go on and on, but I have one last question for you. And this was actually, I did have a communication with one of the energy providers. And the question was dealing with electrifying. And their concern was they didn't have the capacity to meet the requirements of what the bill was calling for. And their suggestion was having the authority to go to the Public Service Commission to start to do the work because they just don't have the manpower to meet the timelines in the bill. Has anybody brought that concern to your attention? And if so, what was your response?
Well, first of all, Delegate, at least in the Senate, the language about electrification of new construction was removed. So I'm not sure, at least in the Senate version, I know it's still in the House version, and we haven't had a conversation to see if you're retaining it or removing it. But at least in this bill in front of you, it doesn't address new construction. So
Actually, Mr. Chairman, let me interject here that there were two reports, one by E3 and one by the Brattle Corporation, which examined this very issue and found that even in the case of electrification, which has been removed from the bill, the growth in power usage was going to be a lot lower than what they had experienced in the 60s and 70s, on an order of 1.5% growth, roughly.
Well, Chairman and Chairman, I've taken liberty with your time, but I wanted to get a few. These are some important questions that have been brought to my attention. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Delegate. Next question goes to Delegate Vaughn Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would just like to take the opportunity to thank both chairmen, and of course, our vice chair here too, for all the inordinate work y'all have put forth on this bill for the better part of the last year. I think, this product, while certainly, it's been weakened a little bit since it was first introduced, and in certain cases, weakened to the point that is a little disappointing to me. I think ultimately y'all can be very proud, we can all be proud of the product that's before us. So my question is, like Delegate Charkoudian's, is about the PSC grid study. And Mr. Chairman Pinsky, some of the advocates have reached out to me and have sent me some of these similar grid studies that have been completed by jurisdictions like New York City and Washington, D.C. And they appear to be, high quality studies that were done at a lot quicker pace than the sort of 20 months or so that the Senate bill gives the PSC to complete the study. And I just wanted to know if you were open to, some sort of amendment hastening that pace and maybe giving the PSC something like 12 months to complete the study rather than 20 or so months.
Yeah, Delegate, look, I'm open to any amendments from the House. The study, I think, will probably take a year, and they have to put out an RFP to select a consultant to do it. I don't know how long it takes. I mean, I think if it's instead of 18 months, it's 15 months, you need to do what you need to do. I have no objection to that. Look, I want to get this done. There's part of you that says it's superfluous, but be that as it may, it's what the Senate adopted. If it can be a few months sooner, that's fine. Whatever amendments you come up with, we will sit and talk, and I'm very amenable to those kind of issues.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much.
All right, next question goes to another one of our friends from Economic Matters, Ben Brooks. Welcome.
Thanks, Chairman Barbee, Vice Chair Stein, and Senator Pinsky. Thanks for bringing this bill forward. There's a lot in here, but I really want to thank you for it. I think a lot of this stuff is needed. I didn't see a whole lot in here about one mechanism I think would be very important into arriving at what we want. And that's like battery storage, you know. And oftentimes we hear about the grid not being able to handle the capacity for total electrification right now. But I think that part, that has always been somewhat a missing piece, you know, in our renewable efforts. You know, we all know that wind and solar is non-dispatchable. So during those times where we're not, you know, where we're not at night, where we're not generating energy, or when the wind is slow, that would be the other component that would supply that sort of missing link in generating the providing the energy that we need. So could you address that concern?
Yeah, Senator, Delegate, look, I think battery storage is important. I think it's another tool that we're going to need. But we tried to steer clear of start naming types of energy or solutions or new technology. I didn't want to go down that path because then, you know, 8 new technologies are going to come up. The bill is not to define what those specific technologies are. Originally, we wanted to electrify future growth, and that would have opened up for multiple types of technology and energy sources. But we just stayed away. I mean, like I said, the nuclear people, you know, why are we not named? This group said, why are we not named? And that just, to me, would have been a distraction from the whole idea of getting to a 60% reduction and the state starting to lead by example. So look, I think we have to move forward and further in battery storage, Delegate. It's not included for any purpose other than we just didn't want to go down that path.
I see, okay. All right, yeah, and I guess I did see we just passed a bill with the Delegate Fraser Hidalgo's bill with the school buses, and that I guess that would lend itself to the commercial storage for us. But I do appreciate your efforts. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Next question goes to Delegate David Fraser Hidalgo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Delegate Brooks, thank you. You just took out one of my questions. So great job. School buses, batteries. Senator, the question that I had is that earlier we were talking about incentives in the bill. We were talking about incentives for renewables. Could you talk a little bit about the incentives that are already in place for the fossil fuel industry?
Well, many of you, and some of you, particularly on ECM, who are familiar with the RPS, that did not go through our committee. It went through the Finance Committee. I'm somewhat aware of it. And to get us to 50% renewables at a fairly rapid pace. I think the hope is with the federal incentives for many of these clean energies, whether in a macro scale, whether it's wind or solar, or even for automobiles, we're trying to move at a more rapid pace to do that. We know with the VW money, settlement money, they're putting up charging stations. Department of Environment's been using that for like 3 or 4 years now. And then in a more micro sense, and obviously RGGI, which Maryland is a part of because of the Healthy Air Act, which I sponsored many years ago. That also brings funds into the C fund for to use as incentives and for transforming to clean energy as well. So that's on a grander scale. In terms of some of the initiatives in the bill, particularly on retrofitting and reducing emissions, we want to take this seriously, and it might in fact need some incentives, particularly when we're starting to ask buildings to get to net neutral by 2040. That's why we have this special task force, this blueprint, blue ribbon group to meet to say, what does this mean in the real world? What's it going to take? So do we need more incentives? We absolutely do. As you know, Delegate, the state used to have incentives for clean cars, EV, which has been dispersed and has not been renewed. We'd like to have more people with electric vehicles, and I've joined that group. I may have shared with you in the last month. but I think we have to make it accessible to all people, not just middle class, but working families as well. So I'm open to more incentives. Some are happening outside this bill. We take a small step in the bill to start preparing for state incentives for the retro.
Senator Pinsky, I was more referring to trying to put everything on a level playing field and apples to apples and oranges to oranges. When we talk about incentives for your bill or incentives in general, by the way, Clean Cars is sitting over in your chamber right now. But with that said, I was talking more about leveling the playing field when it comes to incentives at the fossil fuel industry. When people talk about incentives, I think it's important to know that the fossil fuel industry receives over $100 billion every year of incentives. So when people talk about incentives, I'm talking about just trying to level the playing field to part of the point of your bill.
I agree 100%.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Senator.
All right, any further questions for the senator, for the chairman of the EHEA committee? Don't see, Delegate Weigel has another bite at the apple.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could you talk a little bit about the Empower surcharge? I know you said the goal was, well, the bill says that the reduction should go from 2% to 2.75%.
Empower.
What impact will that have on the surcharge, on the rate?
It's a gradual increase. There'll be some pennies. But I'm hoping that the work of the Public Service Commission and ECM and Finance takes a more reform measure of really transitioning from what we saw as Empower over the last however many years to do it more dynamic and more creative, looking towards the 21st century. So I think this is a very short-term fix.
So my question was more directed, I'm trying to figure out what the impact on electric rates is, because I know too, I know it seems like everybody thinks there's capacity in the grid, but I'm not so sure there is, because Potomac Edison, where we're at, we're a winter peaking company now. So there's going to have to be substations built out. There'll have to be transmissions lines built out. We already have a proposal for an upgrade to a transmission line running through my district. So I'm just wondering about the timeline of, when all this takes place and whether or not in reality there is enough time to build the grid.
Senator, could I jump in here for a second? Number one, electrification has been taken out of the bill, and we're not going to put it back in.
But how are we going to
hold on. Number two, we do have a study. The Public Service Commission under this bill is specifically tasked to study this matter. So that's sort of my partially.
So they're going to study the impact on electric rates?
Yeah, I would presume so, yeah.
So how do you achieve net zero if electrification is taken out?
Very slowly. Over 25 years.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. All right. There appear to be no further questions. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Look forward to continuing this dialogue. And that ends the public hearing on Senate Bill 528. Let's turn now to Senate Bill 176. It is a departmental bill, and I believe Chrissy Nizer is before us. Oh, and thank you to the members of the Economic Matters Committee as well. You guys are awesome. Good questions. Okay. Senate Bill 176. Chrissy, are you here to represent?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. Well, thank you for having me here today. For the record, my name is Chrissy Nizer, M.MBA Administrator, and I'm here supporting Senate Bill 176. That's our departmental bill, which establishes a rear-facing requirement for child safety seats. It adds further clarity to the existing statute in that a child under the age of 2 would be required to be rear-facing. That is consistent with federal requirements and frankly, just what data shows the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, as well as the Academy of Pediatrics. The science shows that when a child is forward-facing, the head of a child under 2 is much larger. And so it tends to happen due to the physics, the head moves forward and can cause very serious brain injuries. And so that's why we want to put this bill forward to help educate parents in terms of the benefits of being rear facing, frankly, as long as possible, but at a minimum up to 2 years. This is consistent with the requirements that have been put in place by 19 other states. That includes our neighboring Virginia and Pennsylvania, as well as the District of Columbia, all have that requirement to be rear facing up to 2 years. It would put us in line with those jurisdictions as well. It also is something that would be easy for law enforcement to be able to interact with the parent. It really is. The Senate made a modification that made it clear that the first interaction would be a warning. And that's what we see even today with the current statute. Law enforcement's not out there giving citations on this. It really is about providing information and education to the parents. In fact, they can bring to the hearing, even if there was a citation issued, proof that they acquired that child safety seat and that violation would be negated. So with that, I would ask for your favorable consideration. I know we all care about our most vulnerable passengers in the vehicle, and as a result, we ask for favorable consideration of Senate Bill 176. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Chrissy. Any questions for, I mean, I'm surprised this wasn't already the law, but Ann, go ahead.
Yeah, I actually, my question is along those same lines, because I'm thinking that in the future going forward, it seems like this is something that you should be able to do by regulation as the science changes and we understand, what's safer than we thought, rather than having to come back and do a piece of legislation every time there's an advance in understanding of the impacts of these policies. And I wondered if you would, are you already able to do that through regulation and you just want the legislation to support that, or do we have to give that to you?
The statute's actually pretty specific already. So it refers to children under the age of 8 years of age. It talks about they have to be, unless they're 4 feet 9 inches. So the statute is pretty specific today, and that's why we thought that there would need to be a law here. But if the legislature wanted to make it broad and say adopt regulations, we could certainly do that moving forward.
I'm just thinking that so we don't have to do this every few years and get behind where other states may be ahead of us on it. That's all. Thank you very much.
Okay, any further questions for Ms. Neiser? All right, that ends the public hearing on Senate Bill 176. Let's go to Senate Bill 218. And again, Chrissy, you're up. Chrissy? Ms. Neiser, Administrator Neiser.
It looks like her camera's frozen. She may have disconnected.
Let's give her a little bit of time here. Stranger and stranger. Well, I'll tell you what, let's go on to the next bill, which is Senate Bill 80. And if Chrissy gets on, just send her a message and tell her to hang tight. So let's go to Senate Bill 80, and that's Addie Eckert, my birthday buddy on September 8th. Senator Eckert, welcome to the committee.
She's not in quite yet. You can go to Senator Carter. She's here.
Okay, Senator Carter, you're the next lucky contestant. Welcome to the Environment and Transportation Committee. We'll do Senate Bill 465.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, committee, for having me. You've had a heavy bill previously that I was privy to listening to, so I'm happy to tell you this should be a relatively light and easy bill. The House bill version sponsored by David Moon was passed unanimously from this committee. I do believe that you added an amendment, so certainly I'm amenable to that amendment if you see so fit. We did pass a clean bill in the Senate. So Senate Bill 465 deals with the catch-all provision in the Maryland Transportation Article 16-301 that basically says a person may not do any act forbidden or fail to perform any act required by this title. And it already lists what those things are that persons are forbidden to do. The fiscal note shows that out of about over 1,800 charges in 2021, there was only one conviction. In over a 45-year period, there was about 100 convictions. So I would argue as if I needed to, that it's a superfluous provision that's unnecessary. And the harm that it causes is that if someone is charged with it, they have a must appear and they can't prepay the fine. So it does result in persons being unnecessarily arrested and held pre-trial for something that's not likely to result in a conviction. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Okay, any questions for Senator Carter? I don't see, hold on. Oh yeah, okay. I don't think I see any. So Senator Carter, you are free to go. Have a nice day.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Okay, I wonder if Chrissy Nizer is with us yet.
I am. Can you hear me all right now?
I can hear you now. Go and do Senate Bill 218.
I'm so sorry about that, Mr. Chairman. Again, for the record,
don't apologize.
Chrissy Nizer, M.MBA Administrator, here in support of Senate Bill 218. Senate Bill 218 alters a minor provision in the current law to allow the Motor Vehicle Administration to issue temporary licenses and ID cards for up to a 2-year period. It really is something that came to light as a result of COVID. Currently, we can issue 2 45-day temporary products for a total period of 90 days. But there are many examples where people find themselves out of the state or even out of the country for longer periods than that, and they may need assistance. For instance, active duty members of the military, their spouses, or even dependents there, students studying outside the state of Maryland, customers who are out of the state for work or personal reasons, as well as obviously those individuals who we saw during COVID who are at high risk. I give you one example that I think touched all of us when we had to assist a customer who was out of state with his son getting treatment for cancer. So I was able to assist him for the 90 days. But after that, unfortunately, literally, we had to require him to get a valid license, and the state that he was living in wasn't accepting any of the extensions that the governor had put in place. So he literally had to travel to Maryland during the course of his son getting this very important treatment. We certainly would like that flexibility. We think that the 2-year period is enough time, but again, it would require them to come back in the normal renewal cycle. I think it's just something that we can do to, again, assist our customers and be more customer service focused. So with that, I would ask your favorable consideration of Senate Bill 218.
All right, thank you. Any question for the administrator? Okay, I don't see any questions. So Chrissy, you are free to go.
Thank you.
Okay, is Addie Eckert with us yet?
I am.
Okay, I made a point of the fact that you're my birthday buddy on September 8th. So
right.
Yeah, so welcome to the committee, Addie, and you are presenting Senate Bill 80.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Senator Addie Eckert here on Senate Bill 80, Motor Vehicle Registration Exception for Golf Carts. Hooper's Island and Taylor's Island. I think you've seen this bill before, but Hooper's Island and Taylor's Island are way down there to the end of the world in Dorchester County. They have no state roads once you hit the bridge. Both are self-contained, and the residents there would like to use golf carts. This has been their priority legislation and wish for the past 3 to 5 years, because previously we passed a golf cart bill for the town of Vienna. Vienna is right before you go over the bridge that crosses the Nanticoke River. You'll remember this, Mr. Chairman, because this was Don Hughes' bill.
Oh, yeah.
Remember, he wanted to name that bridge the Harriet Tubman Bridge.
Yes.
Finally dedicated to the veterans after a long debate. So anyway, Vienna has done really well with their golf carts. So the folks down in Taylor's and Hooper Island wanted that opportunity as well. That's why we're bringing it to you. And I understand that House Bill 193 has already passed with an amendment to make it electric go-karts. So we'd like to have it clean because I imagine there are already go-karts down there. But if it's, you know what happens when a bill goes to committee, it becomes the committee's jurisdiction. So we would like to see this passed. And as I said, this is Dorchester County government's priority bill. So thank you all very much. And I'll entertain any questions.
Sure. It looks like the subcommittee chair of my transportation subcommittee, Fraser Hidalgo, has a question. Dave, go ahead.
Thank you. And Senator, I raised my hand as you actually answered the question. So you're okay with the amendment that we put on it to make your bill clean?
If it means life or death of that bill, yes, sir.
Well, yeah, I mean, the bill's clean now because it has just an electric. Oh, never mind. Thank you.
You're fine.
Oh, that Dave.
Cookies,
We can
cookies
barely
or no
keep them under
cookies?
control. What can we say?
That's an inside joke, right?
Yeah,
Delegate Vice Chair Hidalgo.
that's right. Okay, any further questions? Seeing none. Thank you so much, Addie. Have a nice
You're very
day.
welcome.
Yeah, okay.
And you too, oh Kumar the Magnificent.
He might make an appearance tonight. Who knows?
Oh, really?
We have our
Good.
committee party.
Oh, have fun. Thank
Yep.
you. Bye.
Right,
Thank you, committee.
Okay, Senate Bill 520, Senator Washington, are you in the
Done.
House?
Yes. Let's see. I see a favorable.
Everybody's getting in the act.
All righty. Good afternoon, Chair Barve, Vice Chair Stein, and members of the Environment Transportation Committee. For the record, I'm Senator Mary Washington, 43rd District, and I thank you for your consideration of this Baltimore City legislation. SB 520 is the cross file of House Bill 434 that's sponsored by Delegate Wells, and it would authorize Baltimore City to decrease or raise previously established speed levels. As you know, from 2014 to 2018, there were an average of 41 traffic-related fatalities and nearly 9,000 traffic-related injuries in Baltimore City. In response to increasing danger streets and transportation modes, the Baltimore City adopted into its code a new complete streets ordinance. And that ordinance will alter the transportation landscape of the city. The complete streets approach, as I'm sure you heard testify in the bill previously, will elevate the priority of pedestrians, bicyclists, and transit users in plannings and roadway design, and will increase the quality of life and mobility in Baltimore City. In order to fully implement this, we need to adjust some speeds on our roads. So SB 520 would authorize Baltimore City to decrease or raise the speed levels without performing an engineering and traffic investigation that is currently required by state law. Instead, Baltimore City would use Baltimore City's DOT would use the new ordinance and its complete street manual, which designates 10 different road types, as an engineering document that would provide the guidance on the decisions to either raise or decrease the speed limits. And again, this is not something that's going to change from year to year, from administration to administration, or from DOT head to DOT head, because the Complete Streets Manual has been written into city code. For any of you that want to look it up, it's Article 26, Subtitle 40. So as amended, Senate Bill 520 would additionally, so we had some Senate amendments. On the top of page 3, we further clarified the language for the new authority being granted to Baltimore City. They felt like there was some ambiguity there because as drafted, it was unclear as to whether the city could, without investigation investigation, decrease the speed limit to any level or to just a previously established level. So that was not clear. So we clarified that so that the city can decrease to any level and increase to a previously established level, which we understood to be the intent of the bill. Secondly, on the bottom of page 4, the amendments provide that a local jurisdiction may not use a speed monitoring system on any portion of the road for which the speed limit was decreased without an investigation. As drafted, the provision would only prohibit installing a new speed camera. So essentially, SB 520 would, in addition to the way it was drafted, would prohibit a local jurisdiction from setting up a speed trap. And that was not my language. That was the language used by one of the members in the committee. And so we felt that that was a reasonable prohibition to ensure that we could move forward on this bill. So I respectfully ask for a favorable report on SB 20 as amendment. And I believe we've had some conversation with the chair, with the sponsor, and they're reviewing the House, these amendments. And I believe, the city found them friendly, and I believe she will as well.
Okay, great. Any questions for Senator Washington? Okay, I don't see any. So you emerge unscathed, Molly.
Thank you
Okay.
so much. Okay.
Okay, have a nice afternoon.
You
Take
too. Take care. Thank you
That
all.
ends the public hearing on Senate Bill 520. Let's go to Senate Bill 625. Is Senator Heddleman in the House? Shelley, you in there? You around here? Apparently not. Then let's.
We do have, if I can ask, we do have Holly, or no, I
Is there
apologize.
is there somebody representing Senator Heddleman?
I was a bit
No,
confused.
she's
That's-
on her way.
Yeah, my
Okay, well then
apologies.
let's go to Senate Bill 7.
Here she is.
Oh, is she here?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Shelley?
Hello.
Senator Heddleman, welcome to the Environment and Transportation Committee.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. How are you?
I'm doing just ducky. How are you?
Fine. Sorry, I'm just racing from the committee room and
Okay. No, that's
Now.
no worries. No worries.
ready for me to start?
Yes, please do.
Okay. Hi, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chair, Shelley Heddleman, Senator from District 11 in Baltimore County, and I'm here to present Senate Bill 625. And this bill is really designed to address a specific problem of a number of my constituents. As you may know, mobility is a program in the Baltimore area that provides people with disabilities critical transportation services. Constituents who have disabilities are completely reliant on this service to meet many of their mobility needs, to get to doctor's appointments, jobs, everyday living. Our office has been contacted repeatedly, as maybe some of your offices have been, by constituents who have been increasingly frustrated and have had to deal with a lot of sometimes dangerous situations because of untimely and unreliable service. I'm just going to give you a couple of examples. A young man who was blind was left stranded on a college campus when his MTA mobility ride never showed up. He had to navigate logistics and arrange for his own transportation, which came hours later. Another constituent reported being dropped by their in-home care provider due to lateness, resulting from so many canceled scheduled appointments. And then recently, a constituent who is very ill with multiple sclerosis and had a flare-up resulting from long exposure to heat and stress from bouncing up and down on an MTA van, had a ride that should have been 5 to 8 minutes, but turned out to be over 110 minutes. Due to challenges with driving, poor routing, and logistics planning. We have to do better. And to their credit, and I will give them credit, MTA has been accessible and responsible to our constituents' complaints, holding a town hall and meeting with us and many of our colleagues. Many times over the years, we've had hearings specifically on some of the issues that they're facing. This bill is just one small attempt to enable the MTA to respond to our constituents' very real transportation needs. During COVID, MTA experienced a dramatic decrease in the number of drivers. And with recent operator shortages, this bill is just one step towards expanding comprehensive and accessible transportation options for people with disabilities. And the Maryland Transit Caucus has made us aware nearly 1/3 of people with disabilities routinely face inadequate access to transportation. Current law requires that MTA obtain fingerprints for their drivers for criminal background checks, a provision that transportation network companies like Uber and Lyft will not do. This bill would just modify the provision in law consistent with what is required by the Public Service Commission and enable TNCs to use a background screening tool to obtain a full adult criminal history check for convictions in Maryland and all jurisdictions within the United States. That's the specific provision that this bill would do. It would also require transportation providers run an annual background screening on all transit operators, including an operator's entire adult history. And as amended, it was just a technical amendment. It would require that any background screening provider provider be audited and accredited by companies covered under the Federal Fair Credit Reporting Act. So we believe that this bill expands transportation access to people with disabilities. It improves their ability to participate in communal activities and live independently. And we urge your favorable report. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you should have them. And I believe that
Holly Arnold is here.
Is on from MTA.
Yeah, so we'll give her 2 minutes to testify, and then we will entertain questions. So Holly, welcome back to the committee. You have 2 minutes.
All right, thanks, Chair Barve, members of the committee. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I just wanted to express my appreciation for Senator Hedelman for introducing this vital, important bill. She covered a lot of the issues that we've been having with our mobility service, and we are striving as much as possible to get back to where the level of service that we need to provide. You know, we know we're not there. This bill is one way to help that, and will give options for people with disabilities, similar to the options that the rest of us have, to take Uber and Lyft and to have that subsidized by MTA. One thing I do want to note is that this is a service that is similar to those that are already being operated in the state. For example, WMATA, Montgomery County, and even here in the Baltimore region, in Baltimore County, are operating this service. Right now, only MTA is prohibited. So this just puts us in line with those. So I'd like to express my support for this bill, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, terrific. Thank you very much. Any questions? Well, apparently you were I was going to say you were so impressive, but apparently not. Linda Foley has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I hit the wrong button and lowered my hand rather than unmute myself. Yes, so my question is, as I understand, we did see a bill similar to this come to this committee. It was reported out unfavorably after it was withdrawn. But my question is, in that bill, there was no provision for any kind of special accommodation, if you will, for disabled people to call up an Uber. In other words, there was no selected list of people in the service provider that disabled individuals could call. And there was quite a lot of questioning about that. I just wondered if that's the same in this bill, that we're talking about just calling a disabled person or someone in need of this service, calling up an Uber or a Lyft from the list that I would call if I was going to the grocery myself as an able-bodied person. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, we want to make sure that people with disabilities have the same access and options that everyone else has. And so, again, that's similar to how the system operates in WMATA, just down the road, including in Maryland, and it's operated very successfully there.
Okay, so just to be clear, people who avail themselves of this service do not get any special, they don't jump to the front of the line, they just get in line with everyone else. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, we're making another option available for them to use. And again, they don't have to. If they want to use our traditional mobility service, they're welcome to do that.
Right. But if they do that, then state funds are used to pay for that ride. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions for Holly or Senator Hedelman? Seeing none, thank you very much. That ends the public hearing on Senate Bill 625. Have a lovely day.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's see, that was right. Okay, so next bill is Senate Bill 731. Senator Watson, I believe, is in the House. So Senator, welcome to the committee. You've got 4 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Barve and members of the Environmental and Transportation Committee. Senate Bill 731 provides for the electronic notification of secured parties and lien holders with vehicle information that's required in statute when a vehicle is towed from a parking lot. The towing company would only be able to contact the secured party electronically if that form of notification is agreed to by the tower and the secured party in writing or by electronic communications. In short, this bill brings the towing industry to the 21st century by being able to leverage technology. This bill is cross-filed with House Bill 870. The Senate version passed out unanimously. There is a small technical amendment that the House bill has. We agreed to that. It changed a couple of shalls to mays. And I respectfully ask for 731 favorable report.
Oh, and too late again, huh?
All righty. Delegate Foley, do you have, oh, you took your hand down. Any questions for Senator Watson? Okay, seeing none, Senator, you also escape unscathed. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, and I believe the final bill of the afternoon is going to be presented to us by Senator Ellis. It's Senate Bill 76. Senator Ellis, are you with us? Is he in the room?
I see that the Chief of Staff for Senator Ellis is here.
Is there
yes,
here
the
to
Senator.
Is there somebody here?
Oh, yes.
Somebody
Yeah,
here
Senator Ellis is coming from the committee room.
Okay, we'll wait for him.
Yes, the Senate's in person, so he's just physically coming from the committee room to his office.
Got it. Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you, Autumn. Well, it's 2:37. Give me plenty of time to read up on climate solutions. And Senator Ellis is in the house. Senator, welcome to the Environment and Transportation Committee. Please present to us Senate Bill 76.
Thank you, Chairman Barbie and Vice Chair Stein. We're just doing the loop from live to virtual.
Memorex, right?
Yeah, so I appreciate it. Keeps us in shape. So distinguished members of the House Environment and Transportation Committee, I'm Arthur Ellis, Senator from District 28, Charles County, here to present to you a leisurely bill to allow golf carts on Cobb Island. Cobb Island is really, truly an island in Charles County. It's at the merger of the Potomac and the Wicomico River, and you have to cross a bridge to drive onto the island. The population is under 1,000, a little bit under 1,000, and there are no major highways or busy roads throughout the island, 400 plus square miles. So, okay, someone share the screen for me. I have a presentation really quick. I think that's what was being tried to do. So pretty much we want to allow golf carts on the island, and the bill calls for later through. I think we're having a little trouble with the quick presentation. The bill calls for low-speed vehicles, i.e. golf carts, between dawn and dusk, so no nighttime driving, and vehicles will stay on the far right side of the roadways, and no minors without driver's license will be able to drive. The bill requires driver's license for operators of golf carts on the vehicle. So that's pretty much it. Just ask for your favorable support of Senate Bill 76, golf carts on Cobb Island, Charles County, Maryland.
Okay, thank you, Senator. Are there any questions for, you can take down your screen now, Senator. Yeah, thank you. We have a couple of questions. Delegate Fraser Hidalgo has the first question.
Thank you. Senator, thank you for this bill. Just to be clear, there's no cross file on this bill. It's just on the Senate side. Is that correct?
It's on the Senate side, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, Delegate Jacobs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, in the bill, it says exceptions for golf carts and low-speed vehicles. And currently, you can buy a low-speed vehicle and tag it legally in Maryland. So are these low-speed vehicles that you're speaking of different than what's permitted currently that's lawful in Maryland?
You know, I don't have the answer to that question, and I will not wing it. I can get back to you with that, Delegate.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right, any other questions for Senator Ellis before we let him go? Okay, so thank you very much, Senator. Have a great day.
Thanks, you do the same.
All right, that ends the public hearing for Thursday, March 24th. Everybody stay on board. Trish, remove the live feed so we can discuss